This is Navy Pier, one of Chicago's most well-known destinations. It receives millions of visitors every year. The famous Ferris wheel, the Crystal Gardens, the Shakespeare Theater, and the many boats that depart from the pier are just a handful of the attractions that Navy Pier has to offer. It hasn't always looked like this, though. The Navy Pier we know and love today has only been like this for a couple decades, but the pier itself has been around for more than 100 years. It has been through a lot of interesting things throughout its lifetime, so let's go back to the very beginning and follow the story of Chicago's Navy Pier. In 1909, famous Chicago city planner Daniel Burnham published his Plan of Chicago, which, among many other city beautification projects, called for two large recreational piers to be built along Lake Michigan near downtown. In a compromise of sorts, the city chose to construct a massive pier called Municipal Pier back then, as both a recreational facility offering space for expositions and a functioning harbor facility for freight and passenger service. It cost nearly $5 million to build during the 1910s, which is more than $100 million today. Construction was finished in 1916 and it opened to the public on July 15th of that year. Although the municipal pier was built with recreation and commercial shipping in mind, it functioned as a lot more than just that all throughout the 1900s. Thanks to the USA's entrance into World War I not even a year after the pier's completion, the Army used the pier as a training facility for the 3rd Reserve Engineers, and then in 1918 it was a jail for draft dodgers. Shortly after this interesting wartime phase, though, the municipal pier was home to the Pageants of Progress in 1921 and 1922, which were essentially successors to the Columbian Exposition held in 1893. They featured some rather unusual events, and it was also advertised as being comparable to the Carnival of Venice thanks to its light installations. Yeah, sounds like a stretch to me too. Throughout the 20s and the 30s, the pier continued to be a home for many large conventions and expositions, and it was renamed to Navy Pier in 1927 in honor of World War I's Navy veterans. As the 40s rolled around, though, the United States entered into the Second World War, and once again Navy Pier's large size and open buildings provided an excellent facility for military preparations. The pier's new name fit really well this time, as it was the Navy who used the pier for their training, and it was home to 10,000 people throughout the war. As World War II came to an end, the GI Bill had been passed, leading many veterans to pursue higher education. The University of Illinois took advantage of this and established their Chicago undergraduate division on Navy Pier, which held classes from 1946 until 1965. Over 100,000 total students took classes over those 20 years, many of them in fact being students on the GI Bill, and the campus got the classy nickname of Harvard on the Rocks. During this educational phase of Navy Pier's history, the St. Lawrence Seaway in Canada was completed in 1959, which helped to breathe some more life into Navy Pier's commercial shipping activity for a while. Many services eventually opted to use newer facilities at Lake Calumet on the far south side by the 60s. The pier also saw a decline in recreational events during the 60s thanks to McCormick Place opening at the start of the decade, which is the largest convention center in North America today. The 60s also led to the University of Illinois leaving Navy Pier. The campus only functioned as a 2-year university, and there was still a need for a permanent and public 4-year institution in the city. Plus, its capacity of 5,500 students was not large enough to meet demand. This led to the creation of the University of Illinois at Chicago's Circle campus in 1965, and the Navy Pier campus was left behind. After this, the pier fell into a long period of disrepair, ending up as a relic of the American economy and lifestyle during the first half of the century. By the mid-70s, Chicago wanted to try and revitalize the pier, and so the city renovated some of the buildings, including the ballroom on Navy Pier, to host events, and the Chicago Fest music festival every summer from 1978 to 1982. However, these various events were still being held in the large, warehouse-like buildings that had become fairly dilapidated. After Chicago Fest, the pier continued to lack regular maintenance, and continued to suffer from underusage. Certain arts festivals and other events occurred throughout the 80s, but it was not the most sought-after venue because of this outdated infrastructure. The city firmly put its foot down and attempted to end this period of dilapidation once and for all by creating the Navy Pier Development Authority. The state of Illinois followed suit and created the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority, or MPEA, in 1989 to oversee both Navy Pier and McCormick Place. This provided the pier with $150 million in order to create massive renovations on the pier to finally reclaim the space for recreation. In 1990, the MPEA announced its intentions to construct open promenades, museum space, an indoor garden, retail, restaurants, and the return of excursion boats and cruises. Throughout the early 90s, construction began and changed the appearance of Navy Pier's buildings quite a lot. The construction project added a parking facility, stages, a festival hall, and most famous of all, the iconic red and white Ferris wheel. Navy Pier, in all its renovated, modernized glory, opened to the public in 1995. With this, the pier had once again become a hub for recreational activities and quickly grew to be Chicago's most popular destination. In 1999, the Chicago Shakespeare Theater set up shop on the pier in a 7-story complex, and in 2000, the annual Winter Wonderfest began, featuring an indoor skating rink. Fireworks shows were also put on every summer. The MPEA did not want to stop here, however. During the 2010s, the so-called Centennial Vision for Navy Pier was devised, which called for further modernization of the pier's appearance and improved environmental sustainability. They set up a contest for design submissions, and in 2012, James Corner's design was chosen as the winner, James Corner being the same architect behind the High Line in Manhattan. By 2016, the first phase of these plans had been completed, which transformed the outdoor spaces of Navy Pier into greener and more modern appearing facilities and added a new Ferris wheel at almost 200 feet tall, 50 feet taller than the previous wheel. Navy Pier also features a brand new hotel, and other facilities and developments continue to be planned as part of the Centennial Vision. And this takes us to the present day. Navy Pier is truly one of Chicago's most iconic landmarks and has a rich and unique history that doesn't get told too often. As we continue to move forward into the 21st century, we will have to wait and see what other kinds of unexpected and interesting phases the pier will undergo. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate it if you subscribed to my channel and checked out some other similar videos of mine. Again, thanks for stopping by the video, and have a great day, everyone.